Hello everybody, this is my color pencil drawing of Tom Brady. I previously did a time-lapse video of this drawing, but this one is going to be longer. It's going to be more like a narrated tutorial. I'm going to be going over some of my techniques and some of the materials I used. I'm not going to be showing the whole thing. I'm mostly going to be focusing on Brady's face and helmet. So if you want to see the time lapse of the whole thing, I'm going to put the link in the description. But for now, let's see how I drew Tom Brady's face. Alright, I'm starting with a graphite pencil, and you're probably wondering, well, why are you working with a graphite pencil when you just said that it was going to be a color pencil drawing? Well, I sometimes like to combine color pencils with a graphite pencil. I find that graphite pencils can be useful for shading, and this is what I'm doing now. I decided to shade Brady's helmet with a hard 2H graphite pencil. The helmet is of very light color, almost white or off-white, slightly grayish maybe. But I need to shade it to make it show up against the background. And I decided to make the background or leave the background white. And the other way to achieve that contrast would be to shade the background, but I'm not going to do that now. So I'm going to shade the helmet and I'm going to blend it with a brush. And once I'm done shading with graphite pencils, I'm going to add a touch of colored pencil to it. I'm going to be adding a touch of cobalt blue here because I want to make it a little more interesting, not just gray. Plus the helmet is reflective and it's going to pick up some of the other colors from his gear. Now I'm drawing the Patriots logo. I'm using the same pencil. I'm also going to be using a black colored pencil for these straps and other parts of the helmet. The helmet consists of several parts. The shell, which is what I'm working on now, the straps, which are in the lower part here, and of course the mask. And there's also the padding on the inside. I'm now working on the mask, and it consists of round bars, and I'm trying to shade them so that they look round. I'm shading the outer edge and leaving the middle part lighter so that they look round and shiny. I'm also going in with a darker colored pencil here. This is a burnt sienna, and I'm trying to shade some of these darker areas. I'm going to shade the neck with an ochre colored pencil, and this is going to be my base color for the skin, but naturally I'm not going to leave it like that. I'm going to be adding some other colors to it. I'm using all kinds of colored pencils here. Some of them are cheaper, others are more expensive. I usually like working with cheaper ones because they are easier to layer and blend, and they're also a lot easier to erase. But the more expensive ones have more pigment and they are more rich in color. Now I'm using Faber-Castell Polychromos Van Dyke Brown. I'm going to be using that to shade around the eyes and just under the helmet, around the padding, because that area needs to be darker. So now I'm working around Tom Brady's eyes. And Tom Brady has very deep set eyes. I'm also using the brown pencil to not just to shade around the eyes, but also suggest where the eyebrows should be. Like I said, Tom Brady has very deep set eyes. I read somewhere that anthropologists say that men generally have much deeper set eyes, and that this is an advantage for hunting and combat. Tom Brady has very masculine facial features. He's a pretty handsome guy. Or at least a lot of people seem to think so. A lot of people also say that I'm a handsome guy. People like my mom, for example. Anyway, I'm shading the rest of the face with this ochre. And like I said, that's going to be my base color. I know it looks a little bit yellowish, but I'm going to be adding some other stuff to it. I shaded around the eyes, and now I'm going to draw the pupil and a little bit of the iris, and then once I've done that, I'm going to add some color. I believe that Brady has blue eyes, so I'm going to be using light blue. I'm going to be using light blue, but I'm not just going to leave it like that. I'm going to add a little bit of the graphite pencil to make it a little bit more grayish. I'm also shading the eyeball a little bit so that it's not completely white and so that it looks a little bit more round. I'm adding a touch of magenta to the face in order to make the skin tone a little more realistic. As you can see, I occasionally used the black colored pencil for shading some of these darker areas, for example under the padding and around the mask. I know a lot of experienced artists don't really recommend using black colored pencil in such a way, but I have no problem with it. I'm not really great with colored pencils. I just try to use whatever gets the job done. Now I'm shading the side of the face and the area under the helmet and just under the padding, because these are going to be the darkest areas of the face. I'm also going some of these areas with the ochre pencil, using a little bit more pressure, because the first time I covered it I was very gentle, but now I'm adding a little more. I'm shading the area around the eyes to make it look like they are deep set, and I'm also using a little bit of that burnt sienna here and there. I'm going to shade the area around the chin or under the chin. Now I use that dark brown to shade the area under the helmet. So now I'm gonna use that brown to shade around the eyes a little bit. I'm drawing a shadow under the chin here using my Van Dyke brown, and just working on the helmet a little bit more. It's time to finish the other eye. As you can see, maybe I added a touch of green to the eyes as well. Like I said, I'm not really sure what his color, eye color is, but I try to make it look a little bit grayish. And I'm using the dark brown to draw the eyelashes and shade a little bit more around the eyes. Shading this area around the eyes and the nose is probably the most important bit, because once you get that part of the facial topography right, you'll usually have no problem achieving likeness. Here I decided to do a little bit of his shirt just to see how it will look. And I also have to finish with the helmet. I'm also using a lighter brown here and there, which is a cheaper brown pencil, but it helps me with the shading. It has more of a reddish tone, which I thought would work well with the ochre that I laid down as a base color. Like I said, I'm trying to finish this area of the helmet, and here there are a couple of screws that are holding the mask, where the mask is attached to the shell. And I'm going to be shading this area with a graphite pencil because I want it to look transparent. So I'm going to shade it very, very lightly, just to suggest that it's there, and add a few touches of darker colored pencil just so that it looks transparent. Like so. I'm also going to add a touch of red here so that this area looks transparent. And now I need to finish the rest of the mask. I skipped over that part because it was kind of boring. Now I'm moving on to the area around the nose and the mouth. Brady has very large teeth, I think, so I'm going to be working on that soon, but first I have to shade the nose. By the way, I'm from Serbia, and American football isn't very popular in my country, but it does exist. Several years ago I ran into a bunch of people playing American football. They had all the gear and seemed to know the rules. So I decided to ask around, and I found out that Serbia actually has an American football league and dozens of teams and even a national team. We have a Serbian Association of American Football, SAAF, with a whole bunch of teams. Some of them have names in English, others in Serbian. I can translate some of them to you. There are beavers, there are crows, there are counts, knights, wolves, bears, all kinds of animals and other stuff. I don't know how good they are, to be honest, because the ones I saw weren't very athletic, but they seemed very enthusiastic. So the sport is catching on a little bit. I'm using that lighter brown here to shade this area. I'm combining that lighter brown with the darker polychromos brown. I know that other more experienced artists have better and more complex ways of achieving realistic skin tones, but because I usually have cheaper pencils and I don't work with color that often, I like to keep it simple. I think as long as I get the facial features right, and as long as I get likeness, and as long as I have a range of value and I achieve these nice contrasts, the drawing will look pretty good. Now I'm using the dark brown to work around the corners of the mouth. And when drawing teeth, especially on a smaller picture, you don't have to draw every single tooth or shade thoroughly around every single tooth. You just have to lightly suggest where they are, I'm also gonna add a touch of burnt sienna, and then also a little bit of a magenta for the lips and the area around the mouth. So I think if you look at the face now, it's starting to look like Tom Brady. I'm pretty much done with the eyes and the nose. I just have to finish the mouth. Drawing athletes wearing helmets can be sometimes a little tricky because the shadows and the shape of the helmet can distort the facial topography a little bit. Now I'm going to draw these the dark paint under the eyes, and I can't just smudge it on. I have to make it look realistic, so I have to make parts of it darker, and the area in the middle needs to be a little lighter so that it follows the shape of the face, the shape of the cheekbones. I need to make it look like it's a part of the face, and like the part in the middle is a little bit lighter. I want to make it look like it's been smeared on with a finger, so kind of irregular. Now I'm just adding some of these darker areas on the helmet and refining the appearance of the mouth, adding a little bit more of that magenta and burnt sienna, and using the pencil eraser to draw some highlights on the nose. I also have to finish the rest of these bars on the helmet, on the mask. I added a touch of white pen here and there to draw some highlights on the mask because I felt I needed a little more contrast. I wanted to look shiny here and there. So that's mostly what I wanted to show you. I did most of the helmet and the face. Now I'm gonna be moving on to the rest of his gear, but this is pretty much what I wanted to show you. I don't know if the colors in this video will be as good as they are in real life, but I think you get the gist of it. I hope you found some of this useful or entertaining. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.